A little over a year ago, I made the first video essay on YouTube that covered the entirety of Final Fantasy XI, from the game's launch in 2002 to the game's most recent expansion, the Voracious Resurgence, in 2020. It's the most popular video on my channel, and one of the most popular lengthy video essays about Final Fantasy XI. And it makes sense why it became so popular. My 11 video provided something to the general FF community that was sorely lacking. No other video had covered the entirety of the game before in a single video, and most Final Fantasy YouTube channels, including Final Fantasy Union and Night Sky Prince, didn't even know the Voracious Resurgence even existed, and claimed the game was in maintenance mode at a time when brand new mainline story content was being added. People have had a lot of misconceptions about Final Fantasy XI over the years, and my video sought to rectify a lot of those misconceptions. And according to the feedback I got from the people who hadn't yet played 11, it worked. People thought 11 had shut down and was offline. It didn't. People thought 11 had no story, when it has possibly the most story of any game in the series. People thought 11 had stopped adding new content, when it had just wrapped up an expansion storyline. My video helped change the discourse around Final Fantasy XI, and I had a bunch of people reach out to me and say that the video inspired them to play Final Fantasy XI for the first time. It makes sense why that video brought in so many new players. Most FF fans are heavily invested in storytelling as a core part of their gaming experience, at least within the confines of the Final Fantasy franchise. So an extensive video essay, going over 20 plus years of Final Fantasy XI storylines, helped convince a number of people that Final Fantasy XI did in fact have a story, and beyond that, a story that sounded like it was worth their while. Most FF11 YouTubers focus on the nuances of MMO game mechanics, and are so in the weeds of niche concepts about the game that normies on the outside of the 11-verse can't relate to. And so for years people looked at Final Fantasy XI as this weird nebulous blob of a sandbox with no story, and then comes in my video saying, hey, there is a story, it's awesome, and here's how to approach it. In addition, most 11 YouTubers in recent years have focused more on private servers instead of the official retail version of the game, the latter of which is far more inviting to new players because of quality of life features like teleports, trusts, and faster access to gear, a much more convenient experience for busy adults, while also still offering all of the great social aspects of private servers. My 11 video essay took a strong pro-retail stance, in particular because of my support for labor and because the devs were still adding new content to the game, including main story content, despite limited resources. And I had a bunch of people reach out to me, thanking me for letting them know the Voracious Resurgence exists, and that they were choosing to play retail. Cut to the present day. Final Fantasy XI, a 20-plus-year-old MMO, is having a subscriber problem, but not in the way you'd think. Instead of having too few people playing the game, Final Fantasy XI is having the problem of too many people playing the game, and the most popular servers, Ashura, and the server I play on, Bahamut, reaching maximum capacity. Over the past year, 11 has had a giant influx of new players joining the game, and the population has been booming so much that Square is having trouble keeping up with all the new faces joining the game. So it's clear what happened. I made an awesome video about Final Fantasy XI, and because of it, Final Fantasy XI is now so overwhelmingly popular that servers are reaching their max capacity. Yep. I saved Final Fantasy XI. You're welcome, Square Enix. I'm joking. Well, sorta. I didn't single-handedly save Final Fantasy XI. That's a very silly and hyperbolic statement. But I did have a role in 11's resurgence. Not its Voracious Resurgence, no, I'll give all the credit on that one to the devs. My video did help change discourse around Final Fantasy XI, though. I've had folks tell me that it's a great resource for new players, and that people have sent my video to friends interested in the game, and it's helped a plethora of people wrap their heads around what the Final Fantasy XI experience is like, and, in turn, convince them to give the game, specifically retail, a shot. But that's obviously not the only factor bringing about this 11 renaissance. My video came out around the same time Echoes of Vana'diel came out in Final Fantasy XIV, the 11 crossover raids, and the raid series gave 14 players a renewed interest in Final Fantasy XI, and thus the algorithm boosted my video as content for 11 rose to the top of their feeds. That, combined with the fans who have been curious about the game for decades, finally receiving for the first time in their feed a video going over the entirety of 11's 20-plus year story, was also enticing. But that explains the popularity of my video more than the recent popularity of 11. If I was a bit more egotistical, I would say that my video is what led to 11's population boom, but as ridiculous as I am, and I am quite ridiculous, I'm not that ridiculous. My video was one small part of bringing about renewed interest in 11. Echoes of Vana'diel was the match that lit the spark, and my video was pouring gasoline on the fire. But that fire would have gone out, if not for other content creators like Vicenarian putting out great video essays and waving the banner for 11 as well, or Sistina creating the excellent Final Fantasy XI Days of Starlight campaign to help spread 11 joy during the holiday season. Passionate fans of 11 have continued to support the game for years, despite the ups and downs of the game. They never stopped supporting the game and the developers, and so when Echoes of Vana'diel came out, at a time when 14 fans were starting to feel burnout, a bunch of Final Fantasy XI content creators and the developers themselves proudly showcased the great game that FF11 is, and together, through a united front, as a community, we lifted 11 so high that even people who had been skeptical of the game for 20 years were finally able to see 11 for the shining jewel it was. But again, it wasn't just the fans that kept Final Fantasy XI alive. It was also the hard-working developers who never gave up on the game despite outside pressures to do so. The devs never gave up on 11, despite budget cuts, despite resources and staff being stripped away, despite a new Final Fantasy MMO competing with it, despite increasing advancements in technology making the game harder to update. Despite all of these difficulties and setbacks, the devs never abandoned 11. There are two devs in particular I want to shout out here. Naoshi Mizuta has been making music for Final Fantasy XI for over 20 years at this point, and still churns out new compositions for the game. Akihiko Matsui may not be the current producer for the game, or the game's original producer, but his steering of the ship during the most difficult periods of 11's history, during eras of population decline and technological difficulties, is the most impressive to me, because despite limited budget and resources, he still insisted on adding new content to the game, even at a time most FF fans thought the game was completely dead, and he was able to make miracles like Rhapsodies of Vana'diel and the Veracious Resurgence happen. His passion for the game can truly be felt in the modern retail version of 11, and it's clear he did so much to keep the game alive before passing on the leadership torch to the next generation. Did I save Final Fantasy XI? No. We all did. The community, the fans, the devs, all of us. All of the people who have been supporting the game for over 20 years. We never let the fire go out. We may have entered our journey in 11 in different eras, and we may have different roles to play, but we wave the banner for 11 because we love it so much. All of us, the players, the devs, we are Vana'diel.